Welcome to the Market Mystics podcast. I'm Joshua.
I'm Kim. Let's dive in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Market Mystics. Kim, how was your holiday week?
It was good. I've had family in town. I just have to tell you, summer feels like way off to me. Have I already talked about this? Probably. Okay. Well,
Not that I remember.
it just like schedules are out the window. Every week is different. There's always something different going on. I might be in the office. I might be at home. I don't know. We'll see. But I've had some family in town staying with us and it's been great, but it just kind of felt a little bit like a whirlwind and not so normal. What about you?
Yeah, I think I get that. This, like, we're already not halfway through July, but we're into July.
We're mid-July.
Yeah. And that feels like crazy to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know that schedules or anything have been weird. It just seems like the summer has been zooming.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
But otherwise, pretty good.
Good.
So in our last episode, we talked about intentionality and just some of the thought process behind that. And so you had some interesting thoughts that kind of continued that conversation on. Do you want to share that?
I do. It's interesting to me because this is a topic that we kind of have been throwing around for the last couple of weeks. I sent something on Instagram. I don't know. Essentially what it was talking about the butterfly effect and how it's always looked at as this time travel thing. Like if you were to travel back in time and change something, how much it would change the now. Mm-hmm. And I'm old enough to have watched that movie with Ashton Kutcher, which I loved. For the record, I thought it was great. But what this post was talking about was, what if we thought about it instead of going to the past and significantly changing what is the present? What if we think about it in the present and making a small change that will significantly change our future? And to me, that was a big shift. And I don't even know I had never thought of it that way. But what if we used the butterfly effect now? And so you were talking about our last episode, intentionality. What if we're intentional with the things that we're doing now so that the future looks completely different than where it could be if we kept everything the same?
I think that's the best use case for that topic. Like, because I think there is an ease in looking back because it's already done. And so we can look back and analyze it with maybe a little bit more clarity. It's a little bit harder to look at like the decision you made today and how does the decision you made today impact 5 years from now. Like that's a little bit different. That's a little bit harder. It's a little bit more ethereal. And so I think it's not as natural to do that. But I would argue that probably people who are successful have gotten good at that. And I think that leans towards like the intentionality side. Like you're making a choice and saying, this is the direction I want to go. And then you start going that way. But that is the butterfly effect. That is the ripples in the pond. That is it's just, instead of looking back and analyzing it, it's just doing it in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I don't know where we got this way kind of in our society, but when people talk about time travel, it's always going back to the past, fix something to come back and have a better now. And though I know, yes, there was Back to the Future and they went both to the past and to the future. I think there's something about like trying to fix what one would see as imperfect that they're living now, and having that foresight. But I think what people don't realize is how much foresight you can have when you're being intentional with the now, for a desired future. You may not have control over all of the minutia, but I don't think that's what the butterfly effect is good for anyway, because stuff still happens, right? If you turn left instead of turn right and avoid a car accident, you may then set some other rebel off, right?
Right.
Um,
I feel like there's movies that I've seen that go that direction with it too, where it's like they go back in time to change one thing and then their whole future is totally different and it's not actually better. It's just different. And
different.
in many cases, it's harder.
Right.
Mm.
Right. And I don't know, as someone who I don't really love living in the past, I'm also, listen, our podcast is called Market Mystics, and mystics carries a certain connotation to it. And so I'm never going to pretend like this is one of those weird things because it just isn't anymore. I do believe that time travel is possible and I believe that it's within us.
Mm.
Um, but honestly, I don't love living in the past, but I love being driven toward the future. And I love having vision for where we're going, even if there's a slight speed bump here or a miss or a redirecting this way or whatever. I still really love that. And this speaks so much more to that than kind of being tethered to the past and fighting to move forward as opposed to running for whatever target is you're going for, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm like, my brain is still like that. I enjoyed our last episode because there really is something with like, I think it's just important that we start to understand that we're not just bystanders and that our actions do have an impact. And whether you like it or not, your action has an impact on the people around you. And like it's important to start, even if it's in small ways, taking pieces of responsibility and moving forward with it, because that's like the ripples, the butterfly, the intentionality, the manifesting, the time traveling, like those things are those things you have to move towards, you have to work towards. And I know we talked about this last time, but like it's really been in my mind all week of like at some point that you get like a collective momentum that rolls you into something. But when that isn't there, you have to have the intentionality. You have to have the understanding of the butterfly effect, that the decision I make today affects tomorrow, affects the next day, affects the next day. The decision I make impacts the listeners who are listening to our podcast. Like the choice of what we talk about at some level will impact someone who listens to it.
Right.
The choices we make affect each other. They affect our spouses, they affect our kids, they affect our family. Like that's like that is just a part of it. And if we want to see something different, we can. Like you just like make a decision today that's different than you made yesterday.
Yeah. I think this is really good. And I'm actually going to roll. We had this other topic that was on the table a little bit for today, too. I'm just going to roll a little bit of that into this, too. I've I've talked to some people in the past, and even just recently, some close friends of mine, like really longtime friends, who have mentioned that they kind of have gotten to a point where they've sought success, found it, but have realized that they feel like they have missed their purpose in that.
Mm.
So, like, this is even rewinding to a further ago episode, but the measuring stick of success, you know what I mean? And they thought it was this, and they still don't feel like they've made it. But they've gone so long with that measuring stick that they don't know if they've completely missed it and could never step into another. And I just really think that some of this stuff with intentionality, like making those tiny little minute steps today, really can impact what is tomorrow and what's to come. And I don't know that I'm of the belief that you can miss your purpose. I don't know that I think it is something that the Lord dangles in front of you and goes, here it is. Oh, sorry, you missed it. Bye. Like, I don't think that happens. You
Yeah.
know, it might shift a little and it might wind up looking differently if you start the day you were born, or if you start when you're 10 or when you're 50 or whatever it might be. But I think this is one of those things that truly, with intentionality and with those steps, with those little bits of actually doing it, you can really start stepping into your purpose and seeing, like, almost like the meaning of life coming out for you and blossoming
Mm.
and blooming. But you get to make that decision and nobody else really can.
Yeah. I there's I think it's like my mind when we're talking about can you miss your purpose goes to like um it's not the details of the purpose, it's like the essence of the purpose
Yeah.
that I think you maybe can't miss out on. I'm still not even 100% sure what I think of that, but like um but the details of it, and sometimes we get so caught up in the details of how it looks that we think it's a different purpose. So like I don't know if your purpose is to um heal somebody or to like live a life of healing. um Maybe one way that that is outworked is you start a pharmaceutical company, create something that revolutionizes healthcare and changes the lives of 100 million people. And maybe another way that's outworked is um, one day you tell a stranger like hello or smile at them, and that person um, like does not inflict self-harm on themselves because they felt seen and appreciated. And so like in essence you still accomplish the same thing, but in details it was vastly different. And I think that that can be um I think maybe there's times where your purpose is more detailed, but I think oftentimes your purpose is very um essence driven. And
Mm.
so like yes, the earlier you are connected to your creator, the earlier you start the conversations of what's my purpose, what can I do with this, the sooner you can start making those choices that ripple into your future. um, I totally believe that as a truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I would disagree with that at all. And I don't even know that I'm horribly solid on all of this because it's
Mm,
so nuanced and so personalized,
yeah.
you know, but I also can't help but think some of this concept of purpose and like what you are meant to do is so tied up in identity. And there are times when I see people who almost can't help but outwork their purpose when they're like, what is it? Connected in with the source, when they're connected in with the Father, when they're connected in with Yeshua and really start being confident and solid in that. It's like a fruit of the spirit, it just kind of comes out. Like
Yeah.
there's no pushing, there's no eking it out. It's a natural product of being who you are. And I do think that, yeah, there's different essences that will come out of that. But I just have such a hard time thinking that you can completely miss it, or that there isn't any moment that you can just start going for it.
I think that's the thing is I think that you can at any moment choose to go for it, but I do think there's maybe people who just choose to never go for it. Like,
That's
and
true.
so maybe they miss it, but I think the opportunity is always there to go for it.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this before, but I don't really believe your purpose ends when you transition from the earthly dimension in this carbon based life form to something else. Like,
It was a very sci-fi way of saying that, Joshua.
thank you. I just don't think that that ends your purpose and like your life. And so as that continues, like I think you continue to have opportunities to grow in that and mature and make it like choose your purpose.
Yeah, I think you're right. I have a question for you.
Mm.
Do you think do you think you can ever get to a point where you've messed up so far that there's no redeeming that?
I don't know. I mean, I've heard so many people have conversations around this topic. It's probably the most divisive topic within the Christian mystic community. And I really don't know what my opinion is. Um,
Hmm.
I think I lean towards there is a possibility for redemption far beyond the point that Western Christianity has put it.
Sure.
But can you, like, if a person really wanted to, can they choose to go down a path that removes them from that possibility? I don't know. I don't know that answer.
Hmm.
I don't know if you can take it to the point. I mean, I have friends that have had experiences that would argue both sides of that.
That's interesting. I mean, what if it's not a matter of cut and dry, yes or no? It, anything is redeemable. What if it is actually a choice, like a personal, like your
Yeah.
choice, my choice?
I think a lot of it is our choice. And I've also heard like, like to get, I guess, pretty into the weird stuff. I've heard people talk about like, well, that person has done XYZ and they're really not as much themselves anymore. Like they've allowed themselves to be altered to a point where not as much of them is there. And so, like, I've heard some people say what the Father has created will always be redeemable but not like, but that you can make the choice to allow there to be things that the Father didn't create. And then I've heard people say, well, that's 100% not scriptural because the Father created everything. And so, like, we're like, I don't know how far you take it. I don't have a ton of like personal experience in that topic, but I do think your personal choice is so important in the whole process.
Sure.
What do
No,
you think?
no, I tend to agree. I tend to think so much of it has to do with your source. Like, do I think anything can be redeemed? Absolutely. Because do I think there's anything that's out of reach of the creator of the universe, of God the Father? I don't. But I also know that he gives us a choice, you know, and we can take as much or as little as we want to him. And he can redeem as much or as little as we want to allow him to redeem. And I don't know if it's so much. I hate that there could be a question of like, what's the limit to what God can do? Because I just don't think there's a limit. Like, I don't think that's on the table for someone who's an eternal being, that there is no beginning and there is no end. Like, I guess I think maybe we're asking the wrong question again,
Mm,
you know, and putting the responsibility off of our own selves and like what we choose to do, what we intend to do, where we point our intention, and I don't know that we can mess up so much that he couldn't pull us out of it.
yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that was a roundabout way of saying, I guess I do believe in the redemption of all things. I guess I do. But I think it also has to do with our own choice.
Yeah. I would love to hear the listeners' thoughts. And I know Kim and I have talked about before. We've had guests who have public opinions on some of these things,
Sure.
and we've talked about inviting some of them back and having those conversations, just to get more of an understanding of why they believe it and what they've experienced with it, and what they've learned about it, and um, yeah, I think that I'd love to hear the listeners' opinions, like their own experiences. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's such a, to me, it's like you said, is there anything out of reach of the creator of everything? But how much does our personal choice play into it?
Right. What an interesting thing. I feel like all of this is driving back to where all of our conversations have been lately anyway. And maybe this is just our season for this. I don't know. I don't know. And I might think something different 6 weeks from now. But for
Sure.
right now, I will say this is how I'm processing it, and this is where I'm standing right now, because
Mhm.
that's how I see it. That doesn't mean other things won't be revealed later. Um,
Sure.
any of those things. I just hate to try to have some hard and fast opinion on something when I know that, I mean, based on personal experience, I've had some hard and fast opinions on things, of things that the Lord has told me directly, that then he opens up further later. And then it's like, oh, it's not so hard and fast. Oh, it's not so black and white.
I mean, it's hard to
Okay.
have a hard and
Well,
fast opinion on something that has been argued about literally since the beginning of the church, and even
wow.
into like before the church. Like
Yeah.
eternal punishment has been something that has been a dividing point, has been an argument for as long as there's been more than one person to talk about it.
Yeah. I guess I'm at a place where I think that we are intended to be much more active participants than maybe I was ever taught. It was like, pray this prayer and then you're in or whatever. But what I tend toward is relationship, which is an ongoing and active participation. And it's taking responsibility for some decisions, and it's getting back on course when maybe there's some correction that's needed, and it's being open to having a mindset shifted if that's what's needed. And I guess that's where I am.
I think part of where I'm at with it is if I have decided, like prayed the prayer, decided that I want to follow Yeshua, that I'm choosing the Father as my source, like I'm not overly inclined to really argue about it because like I've decided what I want from my life. And so my choice moving forward like isn't impacted drastically on whether or not that's real or not. Like, but what is like my future is impacted on if I choose to stay in that point. Like the butterfly effect in my life is directly a piece of, do I choose to stay at salvation and trying to decide what is salvation, and is it this, is it that? But if I've chosen that I want it, like, and then moving forward in my life, like that's the butterfly effect in my life, is moving past that conversation into, okay, now what? Like, that's secure, that's done, that's written in stone, that's never changing. Now what do I do? And that to me is like, that's where this butterfly effect conversation and time travel in the future comes into play for me. Is it's like, if I'm looking at my future and what I want it to look like, I have to look at it from the lens of, I'm past that point. Like, that's done and dusted. It's not an issue anymore.
I 100% agree. I was going to say so much of the same. So yeah, very well said, Josh.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Listeners, I know this topic is a hot topic, so let us know what you think.
Yeah. Hopefully in kindness and love, but I mean, if you're not there, you're not there.
Yeah. It's true too.
But thank you for listening anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
See you guys next time.
Hey, thanks for listening. Keep up with us along this journey by liking, subscribing, and becoming a member through YouTube.
Members get exclusive access to bonus content with our guests, deeper dives into topics, and a look into other projects. We're glad to have you here. See you next time.